You are the storm that never asks permission to arrive. The echo of your presence haunts the ones who thought they could discard you, and now they tremble in the silence you left behind. They discover too late that trying to erase you only carved your name deeper into their memory, and every breath they take reminds them of the fire they thought they extinguished, but only set ablaze within themselves. Rejection was not a punishment. It was the unveiling of your hidden strength. Life didn't cut you down. It carved space for you to expand beyond limits you didn't even realize were suffocating you. What felt like a door slammed shut was actually the earth splitting open, so you could grow roots in richer soil, far away from the hands that never deserved to hold you. The breaking was necessary. Before a tower rises higher, the unstable foundation must collapse. What looked like destruction was actually the clearing of rubble, a demolition orchestrated, so that you could build something far more unshakable. Every shard of the old world falling away was proof that you were being redirected to claim an empire built for your greatness, not your compromise. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were led. If something in your spirit is stirring, don't ignore it. Tap join to access exclusive content, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven souls. This isn't just a membership, it's your moment of alignment. Step into who you were born to be. Welcome to the chosen. In that moment of loss, it wasn't just someone else walking away. It was the burial of the smaller version of you, the part of you that needed to be chosen, the part that watered deserts hoping they'd bloom, the part that lived half asleep. That self died, and in its place a fierce new being awakened, unwilling to bow or beg for a seat at tables too fragile to hold your weight. Now they are haunted, not by your absence, but by the echo of your evolution. They feel the emptiness you once filled, and it gnaws at them like hunger that cannot be satisfied. Their longing is not for who you were, but for the light they can no longer touch, a brilliance that burned brighter once it was freed from their shadow. You are no longer chasing validation. You have become the validation, no longer clinging to hands that let go. You walk with the certainty that nothing meant for you will ever require you to shrink. The liberation came disguised as pain, but in truth, it was the ceremony of your rebirth, the anointing of a power they could never contain. This was never about being cast aside. It was about being released. You were not abandoned. You were set free to rise beyond the reach of those who couldn't recognize your worth. The story wasn't rejection, it was ascension. And now, every step you take is a reminder that the universe doesn't make mistakes, it makes legends. You are the kind of soul that refuses to settle for crumbs when your essence was designed for abundance. That earlier self that tolerated less had to dissolve, and endings of that magnitude never arrive politely. They tear through the inner world like a sudden fault line cracking open the ground, unsettling everything you thought was steady. Yet those very fractures allow new rivers to emerge where the soil once lay dry. Your inner rhythm was changing so profoundly that it disrupted the illusions of those around you, shaking their sense of control. At first the shift appeared barely noticeable, a faint vibration they could dismiss. But momentum has a way of amplifying what begins in whispers until it roars into something impossible to ignore. The one who believed casting you aside would leave their reality untouched began realizing that energy moves beyond human logic. It reverberates whether they want it to or not. When a force like yours exits, the space left behind does not stay empty. It becomes a pressure chamber, pulling them back toward what they thought they had discarded. The absence created a pull beyond comprehension, tethering their thoughts back to you despite distance. Though they no longer walk beside you, the imprint of your presence rewrote the rhythm of their days, lingering like a resonance they could not silence. This was never retribution, it was refinement, the stripping away of what no longer matched your elevation, making room for something immeasurably greater. Every painful moment was a rehearsal for the unveiling of your unshakable self, cleansing you of the belief that another's validation was necessary for your light to burn. As you rose from what felt like ruin, your renewal carried qualities once misunderstood as flaws, but now revealed as rare power. What they once deemed too much transformed into the very force they cannot stop replaying in their minds. The facets of your being that were dismissed became the melody they cannot escape, echoing louder the further they run. Their hunger grew in your absence, not their relief. What they encountered was the hollow ache of losing access to a source they never valued until it vanished. You experienced a reversal of roles. No longer orbiting their opinion, you became the axis drawing them helplessly into your momentum. The polarity of attraction flipped, rewriting the balance between you until their composure crumbled under the weight of longing. Now they stumble through reminders of you, seeking fragments of your glow in places you no longer dwell. Their curiosity grows ravenous, yet you no longer respond as before. In your evolution, you've built an unshakable shield, a brilliance cut from clarity that leaves you immune to their attempts. They may still chase the echo of who you've become, but you walk forward untouchable, carrying a radiance that no desperation can reclaim. The reaching you feel is not affection but panic, a frantic attempt to hold onto what has already slipped beyond grasp. That hunger cannot breach the walls you've built from lessons carved into your spirit. From the wreckage of dismissal, you created a citadel of worth so unshakable that it now attracts those who see your radiance as a signal of alignment, not a burden to bear. Your flame no longer devours itself to keep the world bright. You've mastered restraint, radiating in ways that sustain your essence rather than deplete it. Your glow is selective, precise, and unyielding. The one who once deemed you excessive now witnesses you as the perfect measure, abundant for those attuned to your level, unreachable to those who chose comfort over growth. Life, in its sly humor, staged a reversal so sharp it borders on irony. Just when they finally grasp the magnitude of who you are, you've transcended any desire for their recognition. The chasm widens each day, not because of anger or malice, but because your path is stretching farther into realms they cannot follow, and in that distance lies their torment. You have become an unshakable thought, lodged in the circuitry of their mind. Their inner landscape has been redrawn around the memory of your evolution. Every recollection turns back toward you. Every imagined future collapses under the reminder that your energy was singular and now lost to them forever. Their psyche has made you the axis it cannot escape. What they face is not fleeting regret, but a gnawing loop of endless if-onlys. Each scenario replays with sharper edges. If only bravery had matched your magnitude. If only they had chosen expansion instead of retreat. Their mind spirals deeper into corridors of imagined corrections. Yet every turn leads back to the same locked door. The cruel beauty is that you exert this hold without ever moving a muscle. You offer no breadcrumbs, no games, no dangling of possibility. Silence itself became the loudest force you've ever wielded. In stepping away fully, you uncovered the paradox of desire. What is withdrawn multiplies in perceived value. What is unavailable becomes priceless. You have become the one phenomenon that cannot be recreated, duplicated, or bought back. They realized too late they lost the rarest essence they'll ever encounter. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. The ache they feel is not simple longing, but a collapse of their own illusions. They chase fragments of the sensation your presence once ignited, but nothing replicates the alchemy you carried effortlessly. Every step you take forward sharpens their awareness of what their fear cost them. They tug at invisible ties, convinced some thread still binds you, but on your side the cords have long since dissolved. In their fantasies, reconciliation plays like a desperate film, but even there, the truth hums quietly. The version of you they knew has transformed into someone unrecognizable, soaring beyond their reach, while they remain tethered to shadows of what will never return. The version they ache for is no longer alive. That earlier self, the one who molded identity around external validation, who muted brilliance to keep others comfortable, who tolerated fragments instead of fullness, that figure dissolved when rejection scorched the illusions. What emerged was a being reshaped by fire, unrecognizable to the past and untouchable by regret. The longer their obsession lingers, the clearer it becomes how much of their life was quietly carried by your presence. Invisible threads of encouragement, grounding, and inspiration wove through their days without acknowledgement, until the fabric unraveled when you stepped away. What they thought was casual companionship was in truth the scaffolding holding parts of their world upright. You were never simply a participant in their story. You were the reflection that sharpened their edges, the sounding board that made them believe they were sharper, funnier, more capable than they ever truly were alone. With you gone, the mirror cracked, and what they now see is a duller reflection of themselves. Every spark they mistook as their own was in fact lit by your energy. Without your faith fueling their growth, their fragile momentum collapsed. The attempts to simulate your voice in their head betray how dependent they had become. Silent rooms echo with imagined dialogues, phantom conversations that provide no real comfort. The instinct to reach for your guidance remains, but every reminder that you are absent only deepens the emptiness. Ordinary moments stab with unexpected force. A joke, a memory, a familiar scene, all ignite the reflex to share with you, only to collide with the realization that you've outgrown any need for their response. Every encounter with others becomes an unspoken comparison to the support and vision you offered. No matter who enters their world now, everyone falls short, not because they lack merit, but because your particular way of elevating others cannot be replicated. Their condition mirrors withdrawal, the desperation of searching for a source that no longer exists. And your evolution sends constant reminders they cannot escape. Your growth ripples outward, surfacing in conversations, in the stories of others, in images that cross their path uninvited. Each glimpse of your ascent twists the knife of recognition. What they cast aside has become more radiant than they ever allowed themselves to imagine. As word of your glow reaches them through endless channels, their sense of loss intensifies. Observing you thrive with confidence, once suppressed for their comfort, has become unbearable proof of their miscalculation. They don't just feel the distance, they feel the ladder pulled up, the doorway sealed, the access revoked. The reality is undeniable. You didn't just leave them behind, you elevated beyond them, and now they are left staring at a horizon that can no longer be crossed. The sight of others drawn to your presence cuts like a wound they cannot close. To them, it feels as though they misplaced treasure only to watch strangers discover its worth. Where once they dismissed your care and devotion, now they witness new people cherishing it fully. Qualities they once disregarded are being honored openly, and your intensity is seen for what it truly is: strength, wisdom, and the spark that compels others to grow beyond their limits. The sting sharpens when gratitude from others echoes back to them. They hear people thank you for demanding more, for refusing mediocrity, for setting standards that inspire transformation. Every appreciation voiced is a mirror reflecting their own short-sightedness, a reminder that what they condemned as inconvenient was in truth rare guidance they could not comprehend. Your story has inverted theirs, turning what they thought was victory into humiliation. While they once spun the narrative of rejecting you as wise self-preservation, the world now reads it as evidence of their blindness. Conversations don't frame you as a mistake narrowly avoided. They frame you as the opportunity that no one in their right mind would have let slip. Their rejection has become their reputation. The weight pressing on them is not just emotional but vibrational. Your essence continues to ripple across distances, unsettling them like a frequency they cannot block out. It's an echo that hovers at the edge of perception, showing up in moments they cannot predict, stirring feelings that make no logical sense. A sudden memory, a scent, a fragment of music. Each triggers a pull that takes over their body before their thoughts can resist. Physiology betrays them. At the sound of your name, nerves fire, heartbeats race, and breathing falters. Glimpses of you, even digital, even secondhand, send shockwaves through their system. The dependency is visceral, their body wired to respond to your energy as though you never left. The absence has become a constant withdrawal, keeping them trapped in cycles of longing they cannot escape. You once raised their consciousness without effort, lifting them into versions of themselves they never could sustain alone. Now, stripped of your influence, they find themselves stranded on lower ground, aware of what they tasted but unable to reach it again. The reversal is total. They once positioned themselves as judge of your value, yet now all power resides with you, even without your participation in their reality. And this inversion isn't something you pursue deliberately. You simply continue to expand, to rise, to embody the magnitude of your being. That very existence magnifies their regret, making their error impossible to hide from. Each success you embody, each boundary you break, broadcasts the truth more loudly. You didn't just recover from rejection, you transformed it into the jet fuel that propels you further. Your triumph isn't a response to them. It's a declaration that their dismissal only unlocked the proof of your unstoppable becoming. The weight of realization corrodes their composure from the inside out, stripping away the illusions they once clung to. Yet the reversal of power is not the only revelation. You've transformed into something more formidable than distance could ever create. A living reflection of the truth they've spent years trying to avoid. Your existence alone now exposes the rift between the mask they wear and the reality of who they are. Every encounter with others now gets filtered through the memory of your depth, and by comparison, everything feels thin, brittle, and unfulfilling. The difference is so stark that it forces recognition of the gap between the surface version of themselves and the one that only came alive in your presence. Like facing their own reflection in unforgiving light, they see the dissonance between their self-image and their lived reality. On a lighter layer, there's the hollow disappointment of noticing how shallow their connections feel without you. But beneath that surface, heavier truths wait. Their fear of intensity, their aversion to vulnerability, their preference for comfort over growth. Your presence once held up a lens that magnified what they could become, and your absence now magnifies the limits they've never been willing to challenge. What cuts deepest is the recognition of lost possibility. They remember fragments of themselves that only awakened when you believed in them. Their humor sharper, their thoughts more vivid, their energy more alive. Now those parts have gone dormant, leaving them with echoes of who they might have been if they had chosen courage over retreat. Watching you help others rise only intensifies the grief of their own stagnation. You weren't just another figure passing through their story. You were the one who revealed their own potential by reflecting back their strengths in ways they had never seen. Without that reflection, they're left fumbling for an identity that feels diminished, as though the brightest pieces of themselves have been packed away. Your way of perceiving them breathed life into their untapped possibilities, and now that vision is gone. Left without your lens, they move through the world like someone wearing a costume that no longer fits. Interactions with others feel empty because no one else sees them the way you did. They find themselves haunted by the truth that your perception was the scaffolding for their confidence, and without it, they shrink into a version of themselves that feels both smaller and less defined. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You and sow a gift of $20 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. And now suspicion gnaws at them that the best version of who they once glimpsed only came alive in relation to you. No one else has managed to activate those dormant sparks, to laugh with the same sincerity, or to challenge them into growth without breaking them down. The absence of your reflection leaves them stranded in a void of self, forced to face that what they miss most is not just you. It's the version of themselves they only ever discovered through you. The awareness settling into their chest is not mild regret, but a collapse of certainty. A spiral of panic that no replacement exists and no shortcut will restore what was lost. They've begun to realize the version of themselves that only came alive through your presence may never return. That recognition sends shockwaves through their sense of identity, forcing them to confront that the one they rejected was in fact the anchor of their becoming. Now begins the bargaining, but not the kind whispered in quiet acceptance. It's frantic, messy, and distorted by desperation. Their mind creates elaborate negotiations, fabricating scenarios where reconciliation is possible. In these daydreams, they finally evolve into the partner who matches your brilliance, the ally who celebrates rather than fears your intensity, the supporter who never lets your light dim. But the fantasies grow increasingly theatrical, each one more impossible than the last. In their imagination, They arrive with speeches rehearsed to perfection, apologies polished to resonate with your exact way of thinking, as if words alone could undo choices carved in stone. Yet even in those illusions, a shadow of truth lingers. The version of you they're pleading with no longer exists. The stories shift into absurd rescues, scenarios where fate conspires to bring you together again. They picture moments of vulnerability on your part that allow them to prove their supposed growth, or mutual friends engineering a reunion to restore what once was. They cling to the idea of redemption orchestrated by forces outside themselves, as though the universe would bend to their regret. But the tragic comedy is this: even within their own fantasies, they cannot convincingly imagine themselves worthy of the evolved you. Their mind bargains not with your present self, but with the ghost of who you once were. The gap between that outdated vision and your current reality widens with every imagined reconciliation. These mental constructions become their refuge, a substitute meal for a hunger they cannot satisfy. Briefly, the illusions soothe the ache, like warm comfort that eases the sharpness of longing. Yet when the curtain of reality falls again, the emptiness only deepens, the withdrawal more severe. What was meant to be medicine becomes poison, intensifying their torment. In truth, they're not pleading for you as you are now. They're grasping for a vanished version of both you and themselves. Their mind loops in circles, trying to reconstruct a reality that burned away in the fire of your transformation. And the cruelest truth of all is this: every new level you rise to only makes their bargaining more futile, proving over and over again that no fantasy will ever bridge the distance you've created. The recognition that nothing they imagine will restore relevance in your life lands with crushing weight. It is the kind of truth that hollows out the spirit, stripping away illusions until only despair remains. What torments them most is not the loss itself, but knowing they authored every step of the downfall, sculpting their own nightmare with their choices. Each pang of anguish points directly back to their own refusal to rise, their inability to meet you at your level. They rejected the very qualities they now crave like oxygen. What was once dismissed as overwhelming has become the standard they desperately attempt to match. They chose ease over challenge, and now they find themselves shackled to a suffocating monotony that gnaws at their mind. They demanded comfort instead of transformation, and now live in the cage built from their own avoidance. The stillness they thought they wanted has become decay, and the stability they clung to feels like a prison with no exit. The bitterest irony is that they are both the jailer and the prisoner, holding the key while refusing to unlock the door. Freedom could be chosen at any time. Growth could be embraced. A new path could be built from the ashes of loss. Yet they remain transfixed by regret, trapped in endless loops of what if, unable to stop circling back to the wound as though reopening it might somehow undo the scar. Their obsession is not just with you, but with the reflection of themselves they let die when they let you go. Meanwhile, you've stepped into sovereignty, an era defined not by rebellion, but by absolute command of your own reality. You are no longer bound by the weight of others' perceptions. You move through life, granting access only to those who are aligned, no longer seeking entry into spaces that once required you to shrink. The distinction between needing nothing and choosing everything defines your power. People sense it instinctively. Your presence resonates as authenticity, not performance. The authority you embody can't be faked, and the contrast between your grounded strength and their frantic attempts to reclaim significance magnifies their irrelevance. You are no longer someone to be judged or owned. You are the one who sets the terms, a presence that draws without grasping and commands without demanding. And the most piercing truth of all, your indifference is not cruelty, it is freedom. You require no punishment for closure, no regret to feel validated, no pursuit to feel wanted. You have reached the rarest state, wholeness sourced entirely from within. Their unraveling plays out in the distance like static noise, while you continue forward, radiant, sovereign, untouchable. Proof that indifference, when born of self-possession, is the highest form of power. Their downfall was never scripted by your hand, yet your sovereignty ensures their unraveling plays out regardless. You are not playing villain, nor are you playing savior. You've simply stepped fully into your own magnitude. And it is this unapologetic embodiment of truth that casts you as the unintentional adversary in a story they can't stop reliving. Without effort, you've become the reminder of everything they avoided becoming. Your presence is not a pursuit, but an unavoidable reflection. To them, you are the force that cannot be outrun, not because you reach toward them, but because your existence shines a relentless light on the roads they refuse to walk. And in that light, the narrative closes its circle, but at a height so far above where it began that they cannot comprehend the distance. The true triumph wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in no longer needing their validation. You achieved mastery over the part of yourself that once asked to be chosen. That liberation is eternal, untouchable, immune to their longing. No regret on their part, no fantasy of reunion, can strip away the sovereignty you've claimed. Your energy has evolved beyond recognition. It bends the space around you, shaping outcomes and influencing environments without conscious effort. Every word spoken, every action taken reverberates in the minds of those who once dismissed you, shaking the fragile scaffolding of their self-belief. What they once underestimated has become undeniable, refined into a frequency beyond their reach. The rejection that felt like an ending has revealed itself as ignition. Every attempt to diminish, you became the pressure that forged your unbreakable strength. You weren't cast aside. You were launched forward, not expelled from possibility, but propelled into the vastness of your potential, where no ceiling exists except the one you choose to set. What began as a supposed downfall has crystallized into legend. Your journey is now the cautionary tale and the inspiration, the proof of what happens when dismissal becomes fuel instead of defeat. You embody the lesson that rejection is never final. It is the invitation to ascend beyond what was once imaginable. And so, they remain locked in regret, a relic preserved in the moment of their greatest miscalculation. While they replay old choices like broken film, you continue expanding into realms untouchable, your story becoming myth in their memory. Their obsession is their prison, your indifference is your freedom, and your ascent is the eternal proof that the universe was never closing a door. It was opening a kingdom.